What if I told you that anything that you desire is available to you instantaneously? Would you believe it? Well, it doesn't matter if you believe it because it's the truth. All manifestation is instantaneous because everything that you experience that we call manifestation is our perception. And our perception is most fundamentally and most strongly influenced by our state of being. So it is our state of being that shapes and distorts our perception, which is then what manifests our experience to be what it is. And so if you were to look directly and yet in a detached way from your thinking and your feeling and your perceiving, you would come to the innermost reality, which is the source of your external reality. And if you did so for long enough, if you could stay still and silent, aware and observing your inner reality, you would uplift that kind of most essential truth of who you are as the creator of your reality. And that vitality, that well-being, that power would be consciously available to you. And so that's where anything that you desire is actually available to you instantaneously, except that we don't normally experience that because we are kind of oscillating between our desire and what is, our preferred or ideal reality and the reality that's all around us. So in a way, we're kind of sending mixed signals. We're like, well, this is what I want, but this is what I've got. But this is why it's so important to not give cues to your circumstances when we're talking about a vision or a desire, because the internalization of that vision is the self-dialogue, the wish fulfilled, as Neville Goddard says, which is the frequency. And when we say frequency, what do we mean? Because that's a kind of a hip term in our New Age manifestation spiritual circles online, but it's actually a very beautiful and simple term. Because frequency is how frequently you occupy a state of being. And again, your state of being is influencing your perception, and your perception is creating your experience. It is the manifestation that you experience. So, what happens when you more frequently occupy the state of being, which is aligned with your desired reality? Well, that reality becomes your experience. That's what happens. But again, we're so used to giving cues to our circumstances, right? Taking, what is at face value and therefore undermining and sabotaging our state of being, our perception, and our ability to manifest consciously. So in other words, if you were to lock yourself in a quiet space and wholly enter your imagination and shut out all that you think is happening, perceive is happening, all that you believe is happening, you forget all your problems, everything. You just go inward for, let's say, 3 hours. After 3 hours of focused concentration and conscious awareness of your desire, in other words, occupying the state of being that's aligned with that desire, you would not only leave that room a completely different person in a completely different state of being, but you would experience a completely different world. And this is not fantasy. You've experienced this many times. If you meditate, for example, you've probably experienced facing a problem, facing a circumstance, facing a difficulty in your relationships or in your life at that given moment. And you sit down for 30, 60 minutes maybe, and through the very focus of your awareness, you elevate and move beyond what is into the truth of what you are, which is pure stillness, pure presence. And in the presence of your true self, the perceptions that you've been buying into are no longer a sort of reality. They don't have significance. They're just like clouds floating on the screen of your awareness. You don't need to hold on to them. You don't need to give them any meaning. You don't need to attribute yourself to them. They just move on by. And that's the thing, right? After 30 to 60 minutes of meditation, you know that tangibly. You feel that. You feel light and free when you leave that focused, conscious awareness of the recognition of the truth of who you are. Now, this is the ground of your being. This is the seat of your creatorhood. And that's why this silent stillness is absolutely fundamental and foundational to mastering manifestation consciously. Because, again, it's all about frequency. But you cannot frequently occupy the state of being that is aligned with your desired reality when you are constantly distracted by what is, constantly losing touch with your vision, your aim, your goal, constantly losing that feeling of that wish fulfilled, right? You see, we have a moment of inspiration, of excitement, of elevated energy, and we think everything is going to change. I'm going to do it. This is happening. And then we look at our circumstances and all the problems and all the relationships that are causing us trouble. And we look at our phone and we see the things in the world and everything that's going to shit and whatever else is suggesting to you that you cannot believe, that you cannot have conviction in yourself and in your desire. But all of this is occupying the state of being of doubt and fear and insecurity, which is just a different vibrational state. And from that vibrational state, you create a different reality. So if it were not for this oscillating between the lower states of being and the higher states of being, there would be continuity, there would be consistency, and therefore there would be instantaneous manifestation. Because everything is already the instant manifestation of your state of being. There's nothing apart from your perception. What you're perceiving and the perceiver is not separate. The perception is the collapsing of both. The perception, what's perceived, and the perceiver are all one, and they are all your imagination. They are all your conscious awareness, which is pure, undivided, infinite creativity. And when that infinite creativity is directed with focus in a certain direction, it manifests a certain experience. And so you take hold of that conscious awareness, that creative imagination, and you become the creator of your reality when you focus, when you are still and silent, when you are conscious. That is when you are most powerful. It doesn't take effort. It doesn't take time. It doesn't even need space. It just requires conscious will. This is the conviction that I'm often speaking of. And so when you have a desire and you have that conviction and that focus, then you take action. And that's the thing. If you were to come out of that room after 3 hours of occupying the state of being that is in alignment with your desired reality, and if you were to act on the inspiration that you have the moment you leave that room, you would manifest pure miracles. But the thing is that symbolically speaking, we often leave that room and immediately go into the old paradigm again. We check our phone, we interact with our old relationships, we look at our environment, we look at our circumstances, and then the old state of being bleeds through again. And there you are, back in the ordinary, familiar world, as if nothing changed. But everything changed, it just changed back again. So that's why you want to become aware of those tendencies of that old frequency, that old self, which is just trying to stay alive. It needs your attention. It needs your conscious awareness in order to perpetuate its existence. But as the creator of your reality, it is up to you in that stillness, in that silence, to choose, to declare, to own, and occupy the state of being that is aligned with that desired reality, and to hold fast to that state, because that becomes the frequency which instantaneously manifests right here, right now, that experience. And that's the freedom. It's not really about your circumstances changing, not when you really get this. The fulfillment of that frequency here and now is what you seek. anything that you desire, whether it's money, whether it's a perfect partner, whether it's anything that you can create or experience, it is most fundamentally a feeling. It is a state of being. And when you have that state of being, you have everything that could be attributed to that state of being. Everything is possible to you in that frequency. And so you won't be seeking for any symbols or forms as a permission slip to believe. In truth, you won't need belief anymore. You won't even need to buy into the idea that any of these things have value, because you will be at their source. And that is the fulfillment of that desire as the frequency here and now. That's the truth about manifestation, is that the more you're looking to your circumstances to change, the more you're trying to control your life, the more you're undermining your conscious ability to manifest, because you're overlooking the state of being that is aligned with that reality, which is what you desire anyway. So hold fast to that state, and everything will come to you.